Jim Joyce, it's Wednesday. Wednesday.
We did it, man. We did it. We did it.
Yeah,
90 something episodes.
I think this will be 93, 94. I'll know it when I'm uploading this later tonight.
Yeah.
But we're getting to that magic, 3 digits of number of episodes. I like it.
Right. You seem pretty pumped. Business going well.
We're just firing in all cylinders. Like it used to be, we're so like US focused, right? And so like we would do our Spanish mornings, kind of chill a little bit, start a day.
Right.
Now we're 6:30 a.m. go for a run, meditate, a little yoga, breakfast, and then just get cranking because there's just not enough hours in the day. This is our guest. Our guest is texting us already.
Awesome. You can bring him in right away.
Which is great. One quick thing. I guess we could. The only thing that I saw is Roe, another 150 mil at a 7 billion valuation. I mean, and I don't remember when the last round was, but another 2 billion up. So it's a bit crazy. But let's see. Maybe we won't hit him up with that question directly right now. But we're gonna let in Mr. John Driscoll, who, I still had hair. I don't know if you can hear me yet. When him and I worked at back in the good old Metco days. So he's
right. He was. Do you call that like? Is that kind of P hair and A PH and AH pre hair
right?
or before
hair or. John, welcome to the shot. John, Jim, John. I was just saying as we were letting you in that I think when we first met during our Metco days together, I still had like a full head of hair. So
you had some hair.
All right, fair enough.
You were hair competitive.
Yes, I like that.
Right,
Very competitive. That's a good one. I never used that term.
You overachieve in terms of glare.
Yes. So is your host. I feel like we should have had David on with us actually, right? Because you guys do this awesome Care Talk podcast YouTube. You have fun, and I think you two, meaning John and Jim, are the guys with hair, and I guess David and I are the guys without the hair.
Yeah, you were follically challenged.
Yep, there you go.
Do you bring that up a lot? Well, John, I don't think we've had the pleasure to meet, but you have your reputation precedes you. So pleasure to spend. Well, for me, I'm in Dublin, so Wednesday evening. You're based out
cool. What do you do in Dublin?
I have a company called Health Beacon, technology, health tech for injectable medication management.
How'd you get into? Why'd you land in Dublin? I love Dublin.
Do you spend time in Dublin? Yeah. Like I have a long history with Dublin. So I went to school here, and I have some like
UCD or TCD.
UCD, yep, UCD. Yep. Went to school here, and then I ran a pharmaceutical division for a big pharma company here. And I have an Italian wife that wanted to live between Boston and Venice, so this is a little compromise.
United Drug used to be one of my partners over there, and
okay.
So I had business over there, and then my relatives, my grandparents and cousins are actually from Castletownbere.
Okay.
Or the Barra Peninsula.
Look at that.
So southwest, and so when the Russians recently acceded to moving their naval operations farther out east, from the Castletownbere got a lot of coverage because if you recall, they brought shrimp to the Soviet ambassador, and they actually moved their stuff up. But in the CNN spots, they're all they're all shot. Many of them are shot in O'Donoghue's bar, and the woman who runs O'Donoghue's bar, they're all relatives. The O'Donoghue's are relatives. The woman who runs the bar is a relative. She's got one son who runs the body shop and another son who runs the lifeboat operation. And so I figure, between drinking, picking up errant sailors and busted up cars, we have the market figured. It's a small country, so it's easy to get.
That must have been big news, getting the Russians and it being an
It was hilarious. It was hilarious. And we all know some of the people in the pictures. It was really funny.
Right.
But
what a great place.
Jim actually called himself American Irish, typically Irish American, but it's the American Irish.
Yeah.
So
there's very few people who out migrate to Ireland, but other than folks who started there. But that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And where do you live? Where do you live in Dublin?
We're in a place called Ranelagh, just city center. And you know Dublin pretty well?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like about 20-minute walk from Stevens Green.
It's a rough winter there, dude.
Yeah. I don't know, I've been here for so long. I kind of, my view, it's definitely right. My view is when you first moved, I think for people that move to somewhere like, it could be like a Belgium too, or like Ireland or whatever.
Ireland and England suck in the winter.
Right. But you kind of, what happens is you trade. It depends on where are you based?
Connecticut.
Okay. So when you give up the cold, right? And then you come in here, your first winter is like, it's not so bad. We don't have to like shovel our way out of driveways.
I found it miserable. I went to school at Cambridge and worked at LEK and so I spent a bunch of time living out and around London and Cambridge. I found the winter hard. I guess when you start making money, you can go to Portugal, but there's some quick escapes.
Yeah, well, we're in Barcelona. We decided, to get away from
I know
rainy Amsterdam.
You got it figured out,
right?
Anyway, so it's funny to see, right? Another podcast YouTube host actually loving to ask the questions. So we're gonna reverse this on you, John.
Sure, this is fun.
We're gonna reverse this.
So tell me who's your audience?
They're listening now. They're listening now.
Yeah. We've got this is set up. I don't know when you set up your podcast, but ours is entirely non-promotional in the sense of this was a COVID rescue operation, for mental health between Eugene and I, who were kind of self-declared extroverts that couldn't go interact with
horrible. It's horrible.
And we said we're just going to bring on interesting people like John Driscoll on a Wednesday, and we're going to have a chat and we're going to post it, and that's all it is. That's all it is. But we're 90 something later.
Yeah, it's not produced as actually Emmy, Jim's wife, I think after the first episode that we recorded, called it meticulously unproduced, and it's true. We typically, all of this as we've been talking is just gonna go. No production editing. So let's actually then dive in to get to know for our millions. But to answer your question, we got all of our fans in the digital health community, but we've actually had feedback from even like some patients that are listening, and so it's been kind of interesting to kind of hear feedback and where this spreads.
Who is John Driscoll?
Yeah, who is John Driscoll? Let's take us through the path of John Driscoll, and then we'll veer you off.
Grandchild of immigrants, went to Harvard Business, Harvard undergraduate in Cambridge, thinking that I was going to get involved in military history and strategy, and got a master's in sort of history oriented that direction, and got bored with spending time in libraries. Came back and got involved with developing housing programs for homeless families, because I'm very mission oriented, and mentally ill folks, because I was just irritated about the challenge of homeless people in America. And I thought it could be, we got involved in some local state government. And that gave me a window into how much money we were spending in things like healthcare programs and housing programs that just weren't tuned to make sense to the changing situation on the ground. And then when I got a chance to go to graduate school, came out, was a management consultant for a bit, to pay off all of the money I'd borrowed and couldn't pay back when I was a student, and did that. Took a couple of years, and then fell in love with healthcare, a place where you could do good and do well, and where a lot of, again, the same problems I saw in solving the homeless problem, where we had more empty public housing units in America than we had homeless families. And yet, and we were spending titanic amounts of money in the wrong places. That sort of was not that dissimilar from healthcare. And I got a chance to go work at Oxford Health Plans. You'd rather be lucky than smart. When I joined at Oxford in 1991, we had about 80 employees and 100 million in revenues. And 5 years later, we were 4.5 billion in revenues, 5,000 employees. We 1.3 billion. I ran the government programs. I was the first person in government programs and ran it. It was about $1 billion, 3, $1 billion, 4. We were top 10 in the country in Medicare and Medicaid, and we were sort of one of the fastest growing companies in America. And then 1997, we hit a wall with a botched computer transition, and I was asked, one of a few guys asked to actually hang around and try to fix the place, which we did over the next 4 years. Eventually, it was sold to United, but we ended up just building some fantastically interesting programs in Medicare and Medicaid managed care. And through two great CEOs, Steve Wiggins and Norm Payson, got a chance to test and try and learn to be a decent manager and to embrace sensible innovation. I've got interested in technology, and then went to work with Jay Walker, who started Priceline, and worked for him in kind of the digital innovation of Walker Digital when Priceline was doing quite well. In fact, I perfectly timed the top initially of Priceline. Over $300 a share when I joined, and I think at the end of the year it was worth about $3. It was 01. It was the crash of the internet, and it was fascinating to both learn a lot about digital innovation and also about the madness of crowds and even the greater madness of investors and markets.
What a cool service, though. It was our friend from Star Trek, right?
Then that was all Jay. Jay picked Bill Shatner, and he really understood the power of promotion as well as anyone. But also, we built something and a team around it that was one of the great survivors and thrivers. The stock went from like $3 or $4 when I left to, I think it's over a couple of thousand now. I mean, it's an extraordinary business. I mean, it was the promise of digital innovation was quite clear. Right. The execution was all over the place.
Right.
And then spent 3 or 4 years, working in the healthcare turnarounds and some technology turnarounds. And then had the opportunity to come work for Medco, where I got to know you, Eugene. I don't know when you came in, but I came in 03 when Merck thought that Medco was weighing them down, and needed to be. And it was, I think, 47 attorneys general were after us, and we were successfully losing some of the best names of American business.
I think I came in right before, by the way, Dave Snow and Kenny came in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you were there right about the time. Yeah. So I came in with Dave, and I'd worked with Dave before, and I was in charge of everything kind of outside of the conventional business. So our digital businesses, all of our retail contracting, all of our, put together the international businesses for us. I started Part D, which was turned into a $28 billion business for Medco. Put together SureScripts, the cross-industry collaborative that enabled digital prescribing. I was really deployed about $10 billion of capital over the 9 years, and then led the sale to Express, and was involved in kind of all kinds of fun stuff. And Medco was a great organization, but it was I think it didn't have a very clear mission and business model. And we were very clear that we had to kind of reinvent the business and where we would make money every couple of years. And we successfully did that. And then went to, because I sort of fascinated by big companies and small technology, and went to Castlight for about a year, which is the digital software transparency and engagement platform. Left there within a year because I had the opportunity to become the CEO of CareCentrix, where our mission is to help transform the last mile, to help people heal and age at home, and to kind of bring a little bit more heart-centered service, and intelligent analytics, and sensible support for vulnerable patients and chronically ill people who, like my 88-year-old mother, want to spend as little time in doctors' offices and hospitals and nursing homes as possible. That's sort of my that's sort of the career.
So you haven't been up to much.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm sorry. I'm being like,
No.
You could argue, Jim, that it's just a function of ADD, right? That I have a hard time actually staying. No, I think there's a lot of opportunity everywhere you look in healthcare.
sure.
My problem may be just staying on it long enough to build a career. But the thing about it, this is a target-rich environment for fixing things.
100%.
So
And
John,
CareCentrix. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, well, maybe just CareCentrix. I want to actually go back a little bit because to me, and we do have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch this, right? And I think your background, I'd love to kind of know from maybe some of those paths, like what were the aha moments, right? Like, at Oxford, right? You guys hit a wall. Like, what was some key lessons, right? That you took out? I mean.
I think Oxford, it was fascinating because I think that we knew we had a problem before the market did. And I think there's enormous cultural pressure when you've got one of the fastest growing companies in America. You're hiring some of the best people. I worked with some of the best people I've worked with in healthcare at Oxford.
Right.
And I think we've got probably like 15 to 20 CEOs who spun out of Oxford. But I think that what that taught me was a real sense of that you always have to kind of trust your own gut and trust your own numbers, because there's enormous pressure not to acknowledge the obvious, that there's a market change, that
Right.
we didn't know we were going to hit a wall with a system conversion, but we knew that the growth rate we were driving was setting expectations in the marketplace that were very, very high. And I guess what that's given me is I think I was reasonably modest going into it with all of the things that I'd screwed up before. And it may be a lot more modest and sensitive to kind of being in the numbers and really knowing exactly where
Right.
you are. And then the great insight from Oxford, having worked there and elsewhere, is the power of putting the best people on the field and of a deep relationship with your customer. When we hit a wall, the fact that we had phenomenal team members who completely leaned in, and the fact that the stock price fell by 70% or so. I think we announced that we had a problem on October 27th, 1997. And the only reason we were below the fold of the New York Times is because the Russians devalued the ruble that day. And then when the regulators came in and talked to doctors and patients about, should these guys be held up, slowed down, stopped?
Right.
The answer was they may not be able to pay claims, but they're the best health plan out there, and they're the only ones who actually pay attention to my needs as a provider or my interests as a patient. And so the power of that, deep bond, if you really are less transactional and more commitment oriented as a service provider in healthcare, it really is a differentiator.
Right.
And the other one is, just being a little bit more modest. And the final thing is just get the best talent around you can have.
Right. You know what I was in listening to you kind of run through your career and all these different moments was just reflecting on, like as an entrepreneur, it's like someone like myself, who I've done a lot of like green shoots companies, like come up with a concept, an idea, and kind of drag the company through those early stages of development. And you're always, you're gagging for the growth, the next milestone, or kind of like the next achievement. And like the idea that you have, like, like I'm just listening to your experience, like you've had these moments where the companies like scale and then they come back down to earth and they come there. I'm more reflective now as I go along as the negative impact of fast growth or over expectations on companies.
But there's nothing like that aphrodisiac of monster growth. Realizing that next quarter you need to hire 200 customer service reps, and you need to rent an airplane hangar in order to just run the interviews.
Right.
I mean, there's
adrenaline.
There's a thrill you get, a feeling in your nose when things start to really explode. And you just need to keep your hands on the freaking wheel and eyes on the road, because it is exciting, but you can otherwise fly off the road or into a wall. But it is fun.
We always
don't tell me, Jim, that you're somehow like, oh my God, I just want to grow 15%. I don't want to take that 100%.
Yeah. Obviously,
Come on.
you don't. Yeah,
Come on.
yeah, if you know, yeah, you don't. If
You're
you knew
full
me,
of crap
you-
on that one.
Yeah, if
Listen,
knew
you
me,
know,
that wasn't the case.
Marine and I always discuss this, right? Like it's this exhilarating, like, you know, where you're standing kind of at that edge and but you can fly, right? Like you can still fly.
Yeah.
It's that exhilaration of like, holy shit,
Yeah,
it's
you
gonna
just
happen.
got to remember to plan the landing.
Yes.
The
Right.
flying's not the hard part.
Soft landing, especially, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
So
You,
I
you
think,
definitely
again,
there's
what it-
something
right.
special.
Yeah, so what I think is makes the flame outs make you a lot more modest about the good days. It's still fun, but just to be serious for a moment, Oxford hit a wall, Priceline hit a wall. Medco was really in trouble when we started. I mean, and I've been in other stuff that you know, where you go in and you realize, they didn't really have the technology and there's liens against the hardware. And that CEO, you know, he probably should have settled that lawsuit. You know, and you're like, what? And but it just makes you more modest. But there is a real thrill, Eugene.
Yeah.
When you
Oh, yeah.
realize that you start to levitate.
Yeah, you crack something, you figure something out, some kind of magic moment. The business is coming in. You're right. Like you get people will work all kinds of hours to, you know, to satisfy the order or fill the script or get the tech turned or wherever. Yeah.
So maybe just
But I
jump
just
forward.
wanna be
Go ahead.
Very clear that you flip that career around and just point out each one of those inflection points included a failure, Jim. And I think that's just the nature of it is, you know, if you're building something new, you're growing faster, you're trying to break in, you're going to have some crashes. Like there's not going to, like I remember talking to a guy who was a race car driver and I said, do you ever crash? And he goes, oh yeah, that's how you learn.
Right.
And I feel like to some degree, building great growth companies, you got to be kind of battle ready for the hits.
Well, what struck me and even why I was digging in on that point was I was just thinking about how amazing the experience was with Priceline. You know, like that was like this, and you know, we were all part of that internet, you know, .com phase, and Priceline was the company, and they delivered it was a good service. You'd go in there, and it was transformative. It's a bit like it felt like with Uber or something else. That like, you know, you hit a button and a car comes. You know this in your hotel prices. And we didn't have that before. And then you're like, you know, and I guess they ultimately Priceline did, and they survived the ups and downs, but that kind of, how do you grab hold of all that, you know, like, remember the shows we used to have in the States where you would, you know, someone would be able to run through a supermarket and take everything.
Oh yeah,
and,
like
you know, fill up
Price is Right or something. What I like, there's a bunch of those. Yeah. Just grab it all and So let's fast forward, right? CareCentrix. Maybe you can chat a little bit about, you know, the Walgreens. I think, and I don't remember off the top of my head the percentage of the company that they bought. And probably in the context of, you know, we've been talking about kind of home care and that last mile for so many years, right? So what's different now? And it's kind of interesting but I'll pause. Yeah.
So I think so CareCentrix, what we do, just to be very clear, is manage the last mile: home health, home infusion, home DME. One of the things that CareCentrix is the best at is playing that general contractor role and stepping into that partner role with health plans. And we serve health plans right now, and so we are effectively upstream from the dollars, which puts us in a position to kind of see everything, develop smart analytics, and have an edge, because this is the only thing we do. And then we've expanded to there to take risk for Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial plans for SNF, IRF, and LTAC days. You know, those rehab facilities and nursing homes that people go to post-discharge, to do per member per month, you know, capitation and risk for home health and home DME. And all-cause readmission risk to hospitals and nursing homes for 90 days. So we're extending that risk, building it up by the cost categories that are the health plans, our customers, and then taking more risk. When you're that general contractor for risk and it's the only thing you do, you can optimize around site of care so that people can get more healthy days at home or healthier days at home and can avoid complex places. I think what's different, Eugene, now is one, visiting the hospital is one of the fastest growing risks to your health. It's one of the fastest growing causes of death, associative causes of death. I think COVID has created a permanent reset around two important things: the patient's relationship to the healthcare system, realizing that it can be virtual, distant, and effective, and much healthier.
Yep.
And the providers starting to really get comfortable with asynchronous and digital care. But the biggest change has been the patient. And I think that it's accelerated the obvious, which is that no one should spend any more day at the hospital than they should. My sister died of cystic fibrosis in the 60s. And even as a young kid, your sister who's suffering horribly in a tent at home, that every day at home is a gift, and every day at the hospital is a loss. And anyone who's been around chronic illness, catastrophic challenges, anyone who's medically vulnerable knows that you don't want your loved ones to be in a critical care facility or a nursing home any more than they need to. And what's changed is I think we've gotten that attitude has changed, and we have developed smart analytics and a comprehensive solution so that we aren't dropping the ball on patients. We're doing the care traffic control and management that often isn't done. The average patient leaves a hospital with 4 to 6 orders on what looks like it has the tone of an IRS document, and the clarity of a bad hostage negotiation note. I mean, and you're giving people direction at a time when they are, they're dealing with a complicated set of emotions. And so I think the fact that we can, be partner and accompany the patient, the fact that patients want it. And I also think, Eugene, that the pressure to deliver more healthy days at home is higher. And we've just had this massive experiment. UPenn Hospital overnight shifted all of their cancer care to the home. They'd never done it before. And it wasn't because they chose to, they had to. And it kind of worked. There's a lot of things that need to happen in the hospital and need to happen in person. But 30 to 50% of the things that probably happen today in hospitals and nursing homes will not be happening there 20 years from now. And why can't we accelerate that? Well, first you have to understand the last mile, which we do. Then you need to build kind of intelligent analytics, which we've done. And then you need to really help by hand, through digital tools and through network, knit together a sensible, intelligent, and supportive solutions for your patients, because it's really complicated to be a patient or to be a doctor who's trying to help navigate that for patients in the last mile.
When you think about all of these, this fascinating emerging category of digital health tools that ultimately should find its way in at home if they're successful, right? What's the next 5 years look like? Will I have 5 or 6 tools? Because today it's still relatively scant, right? Like you don't have that many digital health tech tools. Maybe if you're on your system,
it feels a little bit like the 1600s when Europe would take stuff to the natives and they'd say, okay, well here's how we do a loom, or here's how a gun works, and the natives are like, what? Like that's kind of, we the natives in healthcare are dealing with these new technologies and that are being dropped in the village, and you're like, well, imagine London, and maybe it would work.
I don't think I've ever heard that analogy before.
I mean, it's sort of like, but there's this culture clash,
right?
That's up there with the conquistadors showing up. The difference is that in this round, the natives are beating the conquistadors.
Right. Well, it's funny when I go and
incumbents are winning.
When
but
I
do think it's going to change. And I think what's going to change is that, well, 2 things are going to change. One, you've got sensible infomediaries like us. We can be that connective tissue for digital innovators like in remote patient monitoring and traditional hospitals and health plans, because their clock speed in terms of innovation is never going to increase. It'll increase, but it won't get that fast. Right. We can innovate faster and help deliver it in a more conventional way. And I think there's an entire industry of added value intermediaries that can help accelerate a sensible mix of digital and value-based innovation in the last mile.
Right.
And I think the technology is getting better. Our standardization is starting to get to a point where it makes sense, but you're still going to need these intermediaries like CareCentrix to accelerate innovation. You just don't see it with a lot of the other traditional incumbents. And it's not a bad thing that healthcare is safe and slow, because often slow is safe. But if we're going to actually get at the cost problem, I think you've got to have people like us in the middle, whether it's anything from palliative to home health to managing, keeping people out of the hospital, integrating digital tools, and not just hardware, but a lot of analytics, and accelerate the use of analytics in the last mile.
I want to add one other thing, and I think we've seen, and Jim, I think your device as Health Beacon, and this is not a promo, but I remember, when Jim, and I've used the story, like ran up to me, it was in London Health 2.0, showing this beautiful picture of this device, which you can say what it does, but it's the user experience with whether it's the remote monitoring, whether it's the tools, whether it's the platforms, whether it's the apps, it's the user experience that we in healthcare have not been used to. It's been improving, right? And so for that same 88-year-old grandma now to install something might be much easier today than it was even 3 years ago, right?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think the UI is a lot easier. And by the way, my mom wants the digital tools. She finds them kind of frustrating, but she wants them.
Yeah, same with my folks. Like I find when I go visit them in Cocoa, Florida, and I spend all my time as a IT help desk, personnel, and they're hungry. They're hungry for, and then people say, oh, well, someone over the age of 80 won't implement digital health tech yet. She's arguing with Alexa, ordering her Amazon, or groceries are being delivered online. She's Zooming, she's Facebooking, like it's almost like she's reading on her Kindle. I'm looking, I'm going like, what? Like this woman is adopting more digital health tech. Like she's like adopting like 2 apps a week, or something, and like, what are you talking about? And yeah, they get frustrated. Exactly. They get frustrated with it, but they love it.
Yeah. No, and I think the truth is we're all frustrated with it.
We were just chatting before we let you in. We were talking about another 150 mil for Roe at a 7 billion valuation. I know, John, you and I kind of discussed. There's these crazy rounds, which, again, if you look at this as a 4 trillion plus industry, there's a lot of things that can be improved, right? How do you look at this, right? And maybe not Roe specifically, but just from an investment cycle.
I wouldn't be putting dollars into the digital health world right now, because I think the valuations are nuts. I mean, I think that it's unless you have something really special and you're getting at early stage, the amount of money that's available. I mean, fortunately for entrepreneurs, there's a lot more money available on better terms than ever. But I've lived through these wild up rounds in 2001, and Jim, we referred to it before. Ultimately, you trade on gross margin and growth rate, net margin and growth rate as a tech company, or EBITDA multiples as a services company. And the companies will either make money and grow fast with real margin, or they'll just be, the white and bones of tech investors trying to come to healthcare and impose a new paradigm in healthcare. I've been on the beaches of healthcare forever. I mean, there's a whether it's Intel or Microsoft or Google or Facebook, they've all said they're going to take on healthcare, and they are the smartest guys in the room, and they've all failed. I think having said that, there's a lot of room for digital innovation. There's a lot of opportunity to improve things, but there are hype cycles that get overinflated, and I think we're in one right now. There's just no way you can. And you look at some of those private rounds are being done at a pretty high number, but vast majority of public HCIT, technology services companies in healthcare are down 70%, and they may be down a bit more, depending on the day. And we are, I think, quickly shifting from valuations that are adjusted for, sort of a discount to total addressable market to how long can you survive on your cash and when do you make money? And I think that you're going to see those, I think 70%, 80% compressions on last year's valuations in the public market, I think start to flow through in the private side. And that'll be healthy.
Yeah. I feel like when you think about these like massive, disruption events that are happening in other sectors, and you have these exploding valuations, let's just look at like, social media as communication tools, or, video communications through the likes of YouTube or wherever they're TikTok or Instagram. And I feel like you pump these valuations, you inspire all these entrepreneurs, you move a lot of the talent and the tech talent to the other side of the balance sheet, away from the big companies. And then, now the guys are showing up, like, you're walking in, like, I know as a digital health tech company, like, now we're showing up with real money, with real tech talent, with real valuation. So when we go in and negotiate with industry, pharmaceutical and insurance companies, our hand is a little stronger. Right? Maybe you need that to disrupt healthcare. You need to kind of, move the balance sheet to the disruptors like Eugene with your coach or wherever.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Eugene?
I honestly, I think where I'm losing my mind a little bit is, I just saw a tweet earlier, how many digital health companies have reached 5 million ARR plus, right? And there's a bunch of responses in there that by their estimation, maybe 2 to 3%, right? And so to me, what I don't understand is, what are the founders really signing up for? When you take in, another 150 million at 7 billion, I to be honest, I don't know what Row is making in revenue. I didn't look. But even at the earlier stage,
it's not that big.
No, and that's what, look, to your point, the TAM might be ginormous, right? And it is, but then, what's the sum, right? Like, how do you actually go achieve it? And then it's great to be part, have a large percentage, I'm assuming, of a 7 billion, but it's all paper, right? It's all virtual.
Again, I remember there was a great Forbes interview with Jay Walker, and he was like the $13 billion man at one point. And when we were like $300 a share, and they said, "What's it like?" He said, "Well, it's not. It's sort of like," they said, "it's meaningless." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, like, I'm not going to sell it, so it's like asking me what the value of my arm is. Like, it's whatever. It's whatever you think it's worth. I'm not going to sell it, and you're going to say it's worth this number. Who cares?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was very sensible, from one of the great promotional salesmen of his generation. Right. Valuations are nonsense. I mean, it's whatever that great Warren Buffett line about, it's a voting machine in the short term. Markets are a voting machine in the short term and a weighing machine in the long term. I think that's true, but without a question, people's valuations on the day-to-day basis are crazy. And I think particularly if you've got a great market and a good company, and you've got a track record, and you've got more money than good ideas, which is true in a lot of healthcare investment pools, there's still a lot of private equity and venture money sitting on the sidelines, Eugene. That creates you're putting, you're basically, light kindling, sort of spray fuel. I mean, it's going to be crazy. Over time, there'll be a flame and then it'll come down, but right. You can't fight that tape.
There's also this idea that, I feel like the maturation of the digital health tech, that, it's not software, it's not, biotech, or, it's not classic device tech. So there's this kind of confluences, but it actually turns out it takes a lot of money to bring these products to market. It takes a lot of money, a lot of competencies like that you've picked over the years, working with insurance companies and reimbursement and Medicaid and, classifications and integration of care. So like you just can't get away. And I think that's starting to dawn, that it's like, if you don't fund these companies, to a certain level, they're not going to get through those milestones, right? They it's not a.
Yeah, but people just have been getting, whether it's from Tiger Global or SoftBank. I mean, to your point, Eugene, the numbers are insane. But again, I've watched the movie before, and I think companies like CareCentrix that, cover tens of millions of people and deliver lots of service every day and are in the boring part of the health plan services side, but pull technology through. That's where I'd be looking to invest and support, because those are highly scalable, proven models. But in a funny way, if you're losing money and you're unproven, you get a bigger valuation,
right,
promote value than if you actually have to make money and do stuff. Right. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it's nature. If you can sell something that the buyer wants to believe, you're going to do it.
Right.
And sell the dream, right?
Yeah.
But your comment about your question or comment earlier, like you said something earlier under a different context, but the cultural pressures of growth, right? And I feel like there's a lot of cultural pressures of raising money now, right? As you talk to other entrepreneurs, like, oh, did you see so and so raised 100 mil or 50 mil, and why aren't you raising 50 mil? And it's like, what about the impact?
Easy. Yeah, no, I think well, that's when is it about the money or the work? Like, I think at CareCentrix, we've got real mission. Our mission is to help people heal and age at home. Everybody has a personal story about why this is so important for them. And we'll negotiate great deals with Walgreens or whatever. One of the things that's exciting about the Walgreens partnership, they're buying 55% and they're going to buy the rest of it in about a year, is they see us as an opportunity to really organize and intelligently apply our solutions and be a capital source for us to grow over the next few years. And there just aren't that many players that can scale reliably with a very high level of confidence around. We guarantee, probably hundreds of millions of dollars of savings to plans every year, probably not, close to that. And we've never paid out on a guarantee. We guarantee service levels. We don't pay out on that. We've got enormously positive feedback. We've invested in a company. We just won. I think the Forbes thing hasn't been announced, but Great Place to Work has been announced. Fortune's most admired list, the top places to work remotely. We invested in a culture that was people-centered and service-oriented, so that if you touch our organizations, you're going to feel that. We've got scalable technology. We've built the analytics. We're going to be able to scale reliably over time, regardless of the hype, hope, or fear cycle. I think we're about to enter a fear cycle. I'm nervous about what's going on in the Ukraine. And what's exciting about Walgreens is they've got a very traditional model, and we could hopefully help leverage technology and pharmacy to really even improve what we're doing for patients today.
Would love to kind of keep diving deeper. There's just so much wisdom coming out, but even though a lot of wisdom come out, I think, Jim, I'm going to turn it over to your famous kind of last question. Get ready for this one, Mr. Driscoll.
Well, I think what's fascinating is this underpinning of this throughout the talk here, John, is this underpinning of a Russian event, whether it's your homeland, Ukraine, or there was another Russian event. I think there was something about the ruble crashing.
The ruble, yes. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. Eugene, do you understand this?
So I do speak Russian, but I'm Ukrainian born. So I am also very, very concerned.
This is a time of real fear.
Right. So imagine yourself, imagine your there was a different pathway for the Driscolls, right? So that they didn't emigrate to America. Some of them stayed behind in a small village in Ireland, but there was a young genius Driscoll relative.
I don't have any of those.
Well, they came out of the body shop, the fish and chip, and they invented an absolutely transformative piece of digital health tech that could easily integrate into the homes across America. And you're looking at that young entrepreneur and you're giving them advice. What advice would you give to that entrepreneur?
I'd call the Collinsons who just built Stripe and say, whatever they did, do that.
Do it again.
They are self-made billionaires. They grew up in a small rural part of middle of the country, and they had dial-up internet from the library.
Right.
And they built one of the most brilliant fintech intermediary companies. They're gentle, they're smart, they figured it out. I think that the idea is you got to charm West Coast investors with that Irish accent. But I'd get close to the Collinson brothers and do whatever they did.
That's probably the most creative advice we've heard so far.
Right.
But
oh, don't. I mean, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Picasso, and he's still right. If someone else has cracked that code,
right,
you just want to buy him dinner and hear half the story so you can steal the rest.
I love it. Get close to the Collisons. That's the first answer.
That's a great summary. Well, John, we know how busy you are. Thanks for making the time for it, and to the millions of viewers, and hit subscribe, pass this on, and over and out. Happy Wednesday.
Yep. Happy Wednesday.
Pleasure to meet you, John.